When I first heard the term flash mob a few years ago, I immediately thought it was a great idea. Was it some new breast cancer awareness tactic? That would certainly get some attention. Maybe it's a new protest that PETA came up with. PETA may be a little nutty, but I think they're second only to Playboy at managing to get celebrities naked. Yes, it all sounded like great news. Then I found out it was a bunch of performance artists that would go to the food court in the mall and perform Michael Jackson's Thriller or something. Damn hippies, always ruining my illusions. So you could imagine my surprise when I found out that flash mobs were running amok in cities like London, Philadelphia, and Baltimore. They were rioting, robbing stores, setting fire to businesses, throwing Molotov cocktails at police, and just generally causing mayhem. I mean, look guys, I understand that not being accepted into a performing arts school can be disappointing. But come on, there has to be a better way to take out your aggressions. I'd go watch Black Swan or something. You'll feel a lot more normal. That's when I found out that the meaning of this practically brand new word to begin with had already been completely changed. These aren't the flash mobs you're looking for. Now flash mobs are groups of disaffected youth, generally in the more poverty-stricken parts of the city, that have decided that since they're poor and live in a poor neighborhood, that the best way to fix this is to burn down or loot the few businesses that they have left in the neighborhood. Yes, for the second video in a row, we have the underpants gnome problem. I'm not sure how they think this is going to help, but nobody ever accused rioters of thinking ahead. I understand that the police apparently shooting an unarmed man initially triggered the riot. Of course, whatever public sympathy and calls for official investigations into this problem that the publicity generated was immediately wasted when the riot started because the riot itself grabbed the headlines. I think we've already figured out that most of the rioters didn't care about the dead guy. There's another angle to this as well, and that was British Prime Minister David Cameron's idea that the government should be able to monitor or decide to curtail public access to certain forms of social media at certain times. The free speech problems are pretty obvious here, and I think many Brits and others have correctly pointed out that this is the wrong way to go on the issue. I can understand monitoring of public communication. We are all here in a public forum, and if somebody wanted to monitor my YouTube videos that I post publicly, I don't think I have a lot to say in the matter. If, however, a government decided to snoop on my private messages without a warrant, or shut down the service entirely, I would clearly be against that. Like any tool, social media is only as helpful or harmful as the people using it. The other issue here is that if you make some exception now to free speech, or declare a general circumstance where it has been agreed that you can curtail a social media outlet on a large scale, then what's to say that later the level for what constitutes an emergency can't be lowered? Even potentially more sinister than that, governments have a long history of manufacturing a crisis to enable them to impose a more authoritarian style of rule, or to generate public support for a previously unpopular policy or war. I realize that this might seem a little conspiratorial, but read about the Gulf of Tonkin incident during the Vietnam War to see this kind of tactic in action. Not to mention the most recent Gulf War. Even good old Ben Franklin knew that history has shown we'll give up a lot of freedom for a false sense of security, if we are frightened enough. Let's never get that frightened.